You guys, we're talking about the controversy of the Chinese sweatshops used to make Nike shoes, and basically they're using like child labor and underpaid wages, like to employees in Chinese sweatshops, and they're effectively outsourcing. Big corporations such as Nike are effectively outsourcing work in order to maintain profit margins, which is essentially violating human rights, causing like huge human rights violation. Like this is crazy.
A pair of Nikes. They cost you $160. Want to know how much the person who made them got paid? Around $1 a day. And that's not a discount, that's a system. And Nike didn't stumble into it by accident. They built an empire on it. So let's talk about how the most iconic sportswear brand in the world keeps getting away with this, and why no one's holding them accountable. Nike didn't start as the sneaker giant we know today. It started in a small basement in Oregon with the track coach, Bill Bowerman.
And they found the secret to success, like child labor. That's their secret to success. Child labor and, you know, paying minimum wage to employees, which are basically children, by the way. Like that's their secret to success.
And a businessman, Phil Knight. They had a simple vision: create better running shoes, sell them to athletes, and make a little money on the side. Fast forward a few decades, and they're racking in billions. But there's a catch. To keep the costs low and the profits high, Nike didn't just outsource the labor, they outsourced the ethics too. Nike doesn't own
Just fucking do it. Just do it. That's their motto. Like just fucking outsource it. Like they don't do it. They just outsource it. And this technique, like outsourcing, has been used in like every fucking corporation. Like I think Apple also does it. Like where do you think all the semiconductors used in Apple phones came from? It comes from Chinese sweatshops. And it's a effective strategy used by corporations, and they outsource work, so they don't have to pay a huge amount of money to Chinese employees because their currency value is low anyway, and you can actually pay them shells. Like you can actually pay them coins and shit below $1. That's a daily wage. You can actually pay that shit and get away with it. Like, and no one would even actually complain because currency value is so low, and it's not effective work. Like, and it's also due to the fact that every corporation does it to maintain like this profit margin. That's all corporations actually care about, maintaining the profit margins.
factories. They never have. Instead, they rely on suppliers in developing countries where labor laws are weak, wages are even weaker, and the work conditions, well, let's just say that they're less than ideal. The numbers, incredible. Nike's annual revenue, over $45 billion. Workers in their supply chain earn pennies on the dollar. And if you think that's where things got ugly, think again, because this is where the nightmare really begins. In the early 90s, Nike was cruising at full speed, racking up sponsorships and signing deals with athletes like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and Serena Williams. But behind those endorsements, a much darker reality. It all came crashing down in 1991. That's when the first major expose hit. A journalist named John R. MacArthur dropped a bombshell. Nike was running Sweatshop.
God bless his journalists who actually do the right thing and actually investigates the fuckery done by large corporations. And these journalists are the real heroes, bro. They exposed these corporations, bro.
The details were horrifying. Child labor, forced overtime, unsafe working conditions. Workers earning...
Yeah, these working conditions were 100% unsafe. Not only like child labor, like not only like minimum wage, but lot of like Chinese children that died from exhaustion. Like there's a lot of reports about that, and they been working overtime and they died from exhaustion. Like, and nobody gives a fuck. People gonna buy people gonna buy the Nike shoes anyway. Like no one gives a fuck about some Chinese kid dying.
Less than $1 a day. It was a PR nightmare for Nike, and the world was pissed.
Over profit. Nike, step off it. Put people over profit. Nike, step off it. Put people over profit.
And this wasn't just some isolated issue. It was a part of a massive global supply chain, with Nike's overseas factories stretching across countries like Vietnam, China, and Indonesia. And when those workers spoke up, Nike threatened them. Workers who dared to unionize were harassed.
Classic operation, like if they found someone actually exposed this shit, they actually threatened them. Classic operation move.
Fired, or blacklisted. Nike's response to this? Deny, deny, deny. But the public was done. They demanded answers. And Nike, they started scrambling. Nike knew they had a PR problem on their hands. So what did they do? They hired a high-powered PR team, made some flashy promises, and
This PR team who actually do damage control for every fucking like allegation. Like these people don't have any soul in their hearts. Like these people don't have any like actual soul and sympathy and morality. Like for all the fuckery these corporations actually do, is money that much objective importance than morality itself. Like, this is actually crazy what the world has turned into. Like, the higher prioritization of money itself. Like, what about morals? Like, anyone heard of those in the 21st century? No one has that. Like, it's crazy.
Claimed they were cleaning up their act, but the truth, well, that's a little bit more complicated. So Nike did what any corporate giant would do when caught in a scandal. They hired a team of slick PR professionals to spin the story. By 1992, Nike introduced their Code of Conduct. It was supposed to guarantee better wages, safer working conditions, and eliminate child labor. They claimed they'd clean.
Yeah, anyone can make a PowerPoint presentation, and you can make a poster and like post it on an Instagram page. That doesn't mean that the problem is actually solved.
Cleaned up their act, but did they? Here's the thing. Nike's Code of Conduct was just words on paper. It was a shiny brochure designed to look like they cared, but behind the scenes, not much had changed. Nike did say they were investing in more transparency, so they started releasing reports about their factories. But they never showed you the factories where things were really bad. They just kept quiet about the worst ones. And those improvements? They were mostly cosmetic. In fact, in 1996, Nike was still being accused of using child labor in places like Cambodia.
Which is a human rights violation if they actually admit that shit. Like, they're done. And how do they even recover from this? This must be like not just a PR nightmare, but also like stock prices dropping for the company. Like, how do they even actually like recover?
Rather than fixing the problem, they just shifted into other countries with even fewer regulations. Nike wanted the headlines to read, "We fixed it. We care about."
Classic corporations, like, and this is what every corporation do. They find a country like that doesn't have like equal laws or like equal humanitarian laws for protection of employees, and they exploit that shit. Just maintaining the profit margin, that's all we care about.
Our workers. But the truth was, those factories were still churning out shoes, and Nike was still profiting from it. The bottom line, Nike's new image was working. The public didn't care enough to stop buying their sneakers, and Nike's profit kept soaring. Meanwhile, workers still in sweatshops. Now let's talk about the real kicker, the hypocrisy. Fast forward to the 2010s. Nike was no longer just the king of sneakers. They were the brand. They were standing up for equality, racial justice, and mental health awareness. They even partnered with Colin Kaepernick, the NFL player who took a knee during the anthem to protest police brutality. It was a bold move, and a move that made them look like they were on the right side of history.
Yeah, this is PR shit. Like, nobody gives a actually fuck about whatever they believe. So nobody actually stand for racial inequality or some shit like that. Like, while they themselves do some fucked up shit like
History. Nike was positioning itself as a champion of progressive values. But wait, what about the workers who were actually making those clothes? Nike's profits were skyrocketing, but workers in places like Indonesia were still earning less than the price of a meal. They were still stuck in the same factories Nike had been criticized for in the 90s. So while
a lot of reports were like child labor, a lot of reports were like some kid dying from exhaustion. That always has been swept under the rug. Like, imagine like how much reports there actually are, genuine reports that was actually swept under the rug. Like, it's crazy.
Commitment to diversity, equality, and social justice. Let's not forget the sweatshops, the child labor, the impossible working conditions, and the union busting. Nike's message was clear: stand up for change, but only when it's good for the bottom line. When it's time to fix the real problems, well, that's a different story. So here's a $1 million question. How does Nike keep getting away with it? They've been exposed over and over. They've been dragged through the mud, and yet people are still lining up to buy their shoes. How? Well, it's simple. Nike knows how to distract you. They've got influencers, celebrities, ad campaigns.
Yeah, this is how Nike actually became a multi-million-dollar empire. They use like genuine accomplished athletes and they promote their shit. They don't have to do any fucking campaigning. Just because your favorite athlete actually wears that Nike shoes, people are gonna buy it anyway. Like, this is how the world works. Even if like someone actually knew about every fucking allegation about sweatshops, child labor, all that shit, like, people still gonna buy Nike anyway. Like, people still gonna buy the new iPhone, even then they know the semiconductors actually made by some 11-year-old Chinese boy dying from fucking exhaustion. Like, they are, even if they don't, they're gonna buy that shit anyway because their favorite fucking like influencer or celebrity actually promote that shit. Like, this is how the world works, and I think nothing's gonna actually change.
He doesn't just sell sneakers, they sell an image, a lifestyle, an idea of success. It's all about looking cool, feeling empowered, and, whether we like it or not, buying into a brand that's somehow tied to winning. And that's where it gets tricky. The more Nike can control their name.
Yeah, that's a PR. They always like tie their brand to something, to a winning athlete, so they can promote a perception that winning is associated with Nike, and this is just like a lot of predictive programming and shit like corporations actually do.
Narrative, the less we care about their supply chain issues. But it's not just about manipulation, it's about convenience. Nike shoes are everywhere. They're on the feet of your favorite athletes, your friends, even you, and they're hard to ignore. Nike knows that most people don't want to think about where their clothes come from, especially when those clothes are so ubiquitous. It's easier to let the image of Nike's brand, powerful, progressive, world-changing, distract from the reality of what's going on behind the scenes. They've made their billions by keeping that reality hidden in plain sight. You don't have to boycott Nike, but the next time you lace up your Nikes, ask yourself, do you know who made them? Nike has built an
Their shoes were stained by sweat or tears from a 7-year-old Chinese boy or girl. Like, that's where your Nike shoes were stained by tears and sweat. Like, that's crazy. And you wearing that shit, like, people know no one's gonna give a fuck anyway. People are gonna wear that shit anyway.
empire more than just great marketing. They built it on cheap labor, hidden behind the shiny facade of celebrity endorsements and corporate social responsibility. We're living in a world where the price of our clothes is
And I never buy Nikes anyway. Like, they're super fucking expensive and like expensive for no reason. Like, and the quality's okay. Like,
tied to someone else's suffering. And Nike, well, they're still running the game. The real question
if you think like Adidas or any other like shoe company is better, you're gonna be wrong. They're doing the same shit ever. Like, they're doing the same fucking shit ever. Like, no other company like is at some from this. This is what corporations do. They outsource their shit.
is, how much are we willing to ignore for the sake of convenience? Nike's empire isn't going to crumble overnight, but if we don't start asking the hard questions, if we don't demand real accountability, then they'll just keep selling us the same myth. So the question is, do you believe in Nike or do you believe in what's behind it? Think about it.
Yeah, and no one's gonna care any shit about it. Like, they're gonna buy a Nike shoe anyway. Like, that's crazy.